We often turn to Carl Jung's famous words to illuminate pivotal moments in our lives, and one that resonates powerfully here is his observation that one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. This provocative statement confronts our common assumption that progress is purely about external achievement or chasing the latest innovation. Instead, Jung invites us to consider the inner shifts that accompany each stage of our personal development. In our current world, we are bombarded by rapidly evolving technology, smart devices, artificial intelligence, and constant digital connectivity. Many of us believe these tools exist simply to make our lives more efficient. But there is another perspective. The technical revolution is not merely about new gadgets. It's also about how we adapt psychologically to a changing world. This shift isn't only for teenagers or young professionals. It extends into midlife and beyond, challenging long-held identities and pushing us to redefine ourselves in the face of unfamiliar territory. Now, consider the individual who feels left behind when the newest platform emerges, or when workplace systems suddenly require advanced digital proficiency. We typically attribute this discomfort to an aging issue or a lack of tech savvy. Yet, what if these tensions signal a deeper call to growth that Jung would describe as an opportunity for integration? Midlife, once stereotypically labeled as a downturn or a point of crisis, might actually be a gateway to an internal transformation that leverages technology as a crucible for self-discovery. Instead of accepting that you can't teach an old dog new tricks, we begin to ask, what if these emerging technologies, while daunting, are catalysts awakening unexplored potential within us? What hidden aspects of our psyche might be activated as we learn to incorporate digital advances into our daily lives? When Jung spoke of making the darkness conscious, he alluded to our inner shadow, those unknown parts of ourselves that carry both our deepest fears and our latent strengths. Does struggling to keep up with the digital age bring us face to face with these unknown sides? Are we, at midlife, actually better positioned to undertake a meaningful psychological evolution precisely because of the decades of experience we bring? Perhaps the real revolution is not found in the latest app, but rather in our own willingness to adapt and transform. These questions not only challenge what we think we know about ourselves and technology, but they also open the door to a deeper, transformative journey, one that merges the inner world of psyche with the external, ever-changing tech landscape. Reflect on your life so far. In early adulthood, the world likely seemed open-ended, full of fresh opportunities, with few expectations that technology would define your identity. The relationship to novelty was often marked by curiosity and spontaneity, with fewer barriers to trying the latest tools or trends. Society, in many ways, supports the young in this exploratory mode, encouraging a sense of mastery over whatever is new, whether it's the latest phone, a social media platform, or virtual work environments. We often expect younger generations to adapt instantly, rewarding them for their fluency in the new digital realm. But midlife historically has been framed quite differently, a time of settling down, focusing on stability, and perhaps coasting on established skills. In mainstream culture, there is a persistent narrative that suggests the older we get, the harder it is to learn. That perception, though widespread, may fail to consider the role of psychological development and the unique strengths that can emerge only after we've reached a certain level of life experience. Jung's theory about life stages and the individuation process offers an essential counterbalance. While the first half of life often centers on building one's persona, excelling in career, forming relationships, striving for external achievements, there comes a shift around midlife that compels us to look inward, to integrate the parts of ourselves that have been neglected. Common misconceptions around midlife revolve around ideas of decline or crisis. But Jung viewed midlife as a turning point, an initiation into deeper self-awareness. When confronted by technology that seems to outpace our comfort zone, we might interpret the challenge as proof we're too old or behind the times. Yet Jung's framework suggests the friction we feel is actually a sign of latent possibility. The conflict between what we think we know and what we must learn can become a crucible for growth, pushing us beyond complacency and into an evolution of self. Far from discounting technology as mere novelty, Jung's perspective invites us to embrace the reality that each unfamiliar frontier can reveal uncharted aspects of our psyche. This leads to a crucial bridge. Rather than splitting technical evolution from personal evolution, we begin to see how they intertwine. When the external world demands a new set of skills, we have an opportunity to expand both cognitively and emotionally, weaving in unconscious elements that have lain dormant. With an eye on Jung's teachings, learning to embrace technology is not a separate or artificial pursuit. Instead, it can become a pathway toward deeper individuation, a process of unifying the conscious and unconscious, the known and unknown. Let us delve more concretely into how these themes manifest during midlife. In many Western cultures, early adulthood is about establishing one's identity, earning degrees, building a professional reputation, or starting a family. The energy of youth and the scaffolding of social structures give us a sense of direction. Over time, we develop a persona, that social mask we wear, which helps us navigate professional and personal roles. By midlife, this persona is well established, and the notion of having to start from scratch, especially with something as foreign as the latest digital tools, can feel like a threat to that carefully built image. On a deeper psychological level, we might grapple with what Jung called the shadow, the parts of ourselves we find difficult to acknowledge. For someone who has prided themselves on competence, the intimidation of new technology may trigger an intense sense of vulnerability, or even shame, at feeling suddenly ignorant. This is the moment where shadow meets technology, the seemingly external frustration. I can't figure out this new system, and I'm too old to learn, can stand in for an internal confrontation. I fear no longer being relevant, or I can't handle being a beginner again. Rather than seeing these feelings as proof of inadequacy, Jung's approach encourages us to listen to them, to treat them as messages from our psyche indicating a new stage of growth. Modern psychological research supports the idea that adults maintain a capacity for continued learning, sometimes referred to as neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to rewire itself in response to experience. Studies show that older adults can and do learn new skills effectively, though sometimes the methods of learning and the pace may differ from those of younger individuals. Neuroscience tells us that the process of learning something significantly different from our previous skills can create new neural pathways, contributing to cognitive vitality. Instead of attributing difficulty to age alone, it may be more productive to look at motivational factors, emotional barriers, and identity issues as prime influences on how we adapt to technology. It is less about can I learn, and more about am I willing to shift my self-image. When midlife individuals allow themselves to become students again, they tap into a transformative process that Jung called individuation. In this stage, integrating new external competencies, like navigating digital landscapes, mirrors the internal process of acknowledging hidden emotions, reevaluating personal values, and discovering previously unexpressed talents or interests. This parallel growth can be a source of renewed meaning, offsetting any existential angst that commonly arises in the face of aging. Technology here acts like a mirror, reflecting both frustrations and possibilities. Just as we try to master a new software platform, we might also discover that we have deeper reservoirs of patience, creativity, or humility than we realized. Real-life examples of such transformations abound. Consider an individual in their early 50s returning to a rapidly changing workplace. They find themselves required to use sophisticated online collaboration tools and artificial intelligence-driven analytics. Initially, the person might experience a daunting sense of inadequacy. They might hear the self-defeating internal narrative, "I'll never catch up with these younger colleagues." Yet, upon taking a step back, and possibly some training sessions, they start to see that mastery of these tools is within reach. Then a subtle shift occurs in their psyche, the sense of surprise and accomplishment. In that moment, new technology was not merely a skill challenge. It became a catalyst for a deeper sense of self-efficacy, unlocking confidence that might have lain dormant. The journey is akin to rediscovering a younger self who loved to learn, or perhaps unearthing a more mature perspective that embraces curiosity without the naive illusions of youth. These experiences exemplify how external and internal evolutions become intertwined in midlife transitions. Let us turn to 2 or 3 specific Jungian concepts that illuminate this phenomenon further. One critical concept is the idea of the midlife transition as a second half of life, distinct in its drive toward authenticity rather than persona building. Another key concept is the confrontation with the shadow, which we have touched on, that the anxieties we face in learning something new may reveal deeper insecurities or unexplored potentials. Finally, the notion of the self, that archetype of wholeness in Jungian thought, suggests we have an innate drive to unify all elements of our psyche. This push toward wholeness can manifest as an urge to keep up with the world around us, not simply to stay relevant, but to remain vibrant, engaged, and psychologically flexible. As technology shapes our environment, it can serve as both an obstacle and a stepping stone to that wholeness. Integrating new technology at midlife is thus more than a practical matter. It can become an integral chapter of the individuation journey. Contemporary psychological research on midlife suggests that successful adaptation during this period can lead to what is called a post-formal way of thinking, a cognitive style marked by greater tolerance for complexity, paradox, and uncertainty. This aligns with Jung's description of the second half of life as a time to step beyond rigid personas and embrace the multifaceted nature of our being. Technology, with its rapid pace of change and intricate systems, offers the perfect playground for developing this post-formal thought. The more we face these complexities, the more we exercise the cognitive and emotional flexibility needed to navigate them. Such growth isn't limited to practical benefits like better job prospects. It also enriches our internal landscape, sharpening our capacity for nuance and broadening our perspective on life's ever-evolving nature. However, this journey is not without deeper psychological hurdles. Technology often calls forth our persona, the public mask we present. We might post meticulously curated images on social media or craft a professional online profile to remain competitive in the marketplace. On the surface, these acts show that we have adopted the technology, but Jung's concept of the persona warns us that over-identifying with this outward mask can distance us from our true selves. If we only show a polished version of our life, it can become harder to acknowledge or integrate the shadow side, those aspects of ourselves that feel incompetent, uncertain, or fearful of irrelevancy. The result could be a midlife adult who appears digitally savvy, but internally wrestles with a deepening insecurity that they cannot share. Yet, if we remain conscious of Jung's teachings, we can approach social media and other digital platforms as extensions of both persona and shadow. We recognize that while a curated online presence is part of modern life, it need not become our entire identity. We can remain aware that there is more to us than any platform can convey. By holding this tension, we maintain a dynamic balance between adaptability and authenticity. Jung believed that containing paradoxes, such as feeling both technologically competent and occasionally lost, helps us grow more fully into ourselves. Technology, thus, can either obscure our real self if we hide behind it, or reveal it if we meet the challenge with honesty. If we look to unconscious elements, they often surface in our dreams or in subtle psychological cues. A person might have a recurring dream of being chased by a machine, or losing control in a world governed by technology. These images reflect deeper anxieties about losing personal agency, being overshadowed by something we do not understand. By engaging with these images consciously, journaling about them, exploring them in therapy, or using them as a creative spark, we can integrate and transform the unconscious material. This integration process may lead to a healthier relationship with technology, one grounded in self-awareness rather than reactivity. Experts in midlife psychology and technology adaptation are beginning to highlight precisely these points. Contemporary psychologists who specialize in adult development emphasize that midlife remains a period of remarkable potential for growth. They point out research indicating that older adults who actively learn new technologies show increased cognitive reserve and even better emotional resilience in some cases. Neuroscientists studying age-related brain changes have found that while certain types of cognitive processing may slow down, others, like pattern recognition and strategic thinking, often improve with age. These findings challenge the stereotype that new tech must be reserved for younger minds. Instead, they support Jung's concept that every stage of life brings different strengths and a fresh approach to integrating both known and unknown dimensions of our psyche. In modern clinical settings, some therapists incorporate technology-based interventions, like guided online programs or digital cognitive training, to help midlife and older clients enhance not only their skills, but also their self-confidence. These programs can trigger insights into how personal identity shifts with each new competence. For instance, a client may realize that learning to use video editing software or project management tools has made them appreciate their innate creativity or capacity for organization in a new way, leading to a broader understanding of self. This is precisely in line with Jung's vision. The outer quest activates the inner journey of self-realization. We see further evidence in scientific studies, focusing on online communities and social support networks. Research demonstrates that when individuals at midlife successfully connect through digital platforms, they often experience a sense of renewed social engagement, which can mitigate loneliness and support mental health. A sense of belonging can be fostered, reducing the isolation sometimes associated with this life stage. The transformation then becomes twofold. Not only does the individual learn new tools, but they also discover fresh ways to relate to others, bridging generational gaps and forging meaningful relationships that transcend age barriers. All of this circles back to the core Jungian idea that we are on a path of individuation, an ongoing process of becoming whole. Facing new technology at midlife offers us a unique crucible for this transformation. Challenges reveal the personality structures that we have built up over decades, as well as the hidden potentials yearning for expression. This shift often demands patience and compassion toward ourselves. We must sometimes peel away layers of old self-images, acknowledging that fear of irrelevance or looking foolish is part of being human. As we befriend these anxieties, rather than banish them, they can cease to be obstacles and become openings, leading us toward greater adaptability and authenticity. When we approach our shadow, we begin to see that it is not merely a repository of negative traits, but also a storehouse of untapped energy and creativity. Integrating this shadow means transforming shame, fear, or pride into a willingness to explore. Each time we troubleshoot a new platform, embrace an evolving workplace, or even learn from younger colleagues, we step into an unfamiliar realm. This humble openness can release renewed vitality that recharges our midlife chapter. As Jung might note, this process is not about perfection, it's about wholeness. Experts from technology fields also weigh in on this dynamic. Many corporate trainers and organizational psychologists have observed how a mixed-stage workforce benefits when midlife workers bring their emotional intelligence, leadership experience, and strategic thinking to blend with younger employees' rapid tech fluency. Collaborations that emphasize mutual respect and learning can yield innovative solutions and create intergenerational synergy. Scientific studies in organizational behavior reveal that diverse teams, age included, often outperform more homogeneous groups. Such findings underscore how embracing technological evolution at midlife is not just a personal or psychological gain. It can also offer tangible benefits to society, encouraging the workforce to value wisdom as much as novelty. From a more philosophical angle, scholars of adult development note that an openness to new technology can catalyze a reevaluation of life priorities. What truly matters when information is so easily accessible, yet genuine human connection sometimes feels fleeting? This question can inspire deep introspection and a reinvestment in core values, relationships, and creative pursuits. Such reflective processes mirror the best of Jung's teachings, which always point us back to our inner life, urging us to unite the outer demands with the inner call towards self-actualization. Returning to the perspective we set forth at the beginning, when Jung spoke of making darkness conscious, he urged us to see that the unknown aspects of ourselves, and by extension, the unfamiliar territory of technology, are not to be feared but rather engaged as part of the journey toward wholeness. The midlife adult who once dreaded being too old for this can, through curiosity and gradual mastery, uncover unsuspected dimensions of wisdom, confidence, and creativity. These capacities were always present, waiting to be summoned by the external challenge. Instead of retreating, each new digital demand becomes a chance for both skill building and self-expansion. At this point, our understanding cycles back to the opening perspective in an evolved form. We began by questioning the belief that technical advances are for the young or that midlife necessarily means a slow decline into obsolescence. Through Jung's lens, the truth emerges quite differently. The turbulence we experience with new technology can launch us into a deeper, more holistic phase of personal growth. Rather than rejecting or resenting the rapid changes of our times, we can adopt them as catalysts for self-discovery. There is no need to remain stuck in the narrative of "can't teach an old dog new tricks." Instead, we realize we can transform our frustration into engagement, our insecurities into learning opportunities, and our midlife stage into a gateway to genuine evolution. By embracing this possibility, we hold on to hope and discover direction. Far from being a daunting reality, living in a world of continuous technological change becomes a dynamic arena for personal renewal. We see that nothing is fixed, and the process of individuation never truly ends. Each new invention, each unfamiliar interface, each moment of technological learning can help us refine our sense of self, recalibrate our values, and stay deeply connected to the ever-evolving human journey. As Jung would remind us, growth is not simply an upward trajectory we leave behind once we've made it. It's a spiral, returning us again and again to the challenge of embracing our shadow, refining our persona, and moving closer to the self that unites our conscious and unconscious worlds. With this shift in perspective, the second half of life promises not diminishing returns but a startling richness, a creative dance between what we have known ourselves to be and what we still can become.